So this is wild rose, obviously the rose family, and it smells absolutely gorgeous. They flower prolifically at this time of year, and the smell wafts through the entire place. It's gorgeous. Wild rose time is my favorite time of year. It's just a beautiful, beautiful time to be out harvesting. Roses are something that I always have in the house and in my medicine chest. They're something that are an absolute go-to for me. I love roses, and you can see from the shape of the petal that they have a little heart shape, and that is the doctrine of signatures for this flower. I love the wild rose time of year. I usually like to bring a jar of honey with me on a wild rose walk, because I'll take the honey, I'll make a syrup with wild roses, and I'll take it to the bush and pick the roses into the honey so that they're really fresh and you get that fragrance. Absolutely nothing gets wasted. I'll use a wild rose syrup for grief, for heartache, for sadness, for when the heart is broken. So I always have a little bit of wild rose honey, and I will make a syrup with it, but most often I make a wild rose honey. So a really beautiful honey, and then put the fresh wild roses in it. It's great for little kids when their hearts are aching, when they're crying, and you just give them a little teaspoon of wild rose honey and everything's okay again. They can take a breath and reset. Wild roses are protective for the heart, and they help the heart stay open at the same time as giving it the protection that it needs in times of trouble. Roses also produce beautiful rose hips, which you can use in the wintertime. So when you're harvesting your roses, remember to leave some of the flowers on the bush, because otherwise you won't have any rose hips. And you want to leave some for the birds as well. And you want to definitely leave some of the flowers for the bees. So wild roses or garden roses, any aromatic roses are beautiful and healing. I never am without wild roses. I'm never without a rose honey or a rose syrup or a rose tincture. And I love to make them out of the wild roses, because the wild roses have a special something about them. They have a special magic about them that captured. But I also make them from roses in my garden that were maybe given to me by somebody, and they have a special connection. Roses are all about the heart. So roses have long been associated with love and with friendship and with secrets. In Roman times, roses were often put on the ceilings of meeting rooms, and everything that would happen within that meeting was called sub rosa, and that term is still used in law today, and it means that whatever happens in that room doesn't leave that room. It's a secret. Roses have been used since ancient times. The Egyptians used them. The Arabic physicians used them. In Persia, they actually discovered rose oil, the attar of roses. Persians had beautiful gardens, and they had channels, water channels going all through the garden where the water would warm before it would go into the bathhouse. And they would put petals, rose petals, into the water to make the water beautifully scented. And somebody noticed oil skimming along the top of the water. And they skimmed that oil off, and it was the oil of the roses, and that's how oil of roses was discovered. It's an incredibly expensive oil. It's just beautiful when you get a good rose oil. So the knowledge about roses, the knowledge about a lot of our herbs has flowed back and forth across the world. A lot of the knowledge that we have about roses comes through from the Persians, came to the Romans, and then flowed up through Europe. And all over Europe, roses were known for their connection with the heart. Roses have this affinity for being able to protect the heart when there's grief or when there's heartbreak, and also to allow the heart to stay open. So where there's that tendency to shut down and protect the heart and to withdraw, roses can help to stay open and connected at the same time as protected. So that beautiful flower with its openness and its beautiful smell is also protected by the thorn. Roses are also really astringent, and the oil, that beautiful aroma, is strongly antibacterial. So not only is it a herb for grief and for the heart and to lift the heart and to bring joy, they can also be used on wounds. So they have a real wound healing capacity. That antibacterial action can help to prevent infection, and that astringency can help to stop bleeding. I often use roses. So I will use it in a rose syrup, or I'll use roses. I harvest lots of roses all season long, and I'll use them in teas. And I add them for their uplifting quality. I add them for their ability to bring joy. I add them because it makes people smile when they see roses in a teapot. And I add them because the smell is just something that makes people open and reach out in friendship. They're lovely. They combine really well with some of the other nervines. I'll often combine it with holy basil, for instance, which has that beautiful spirit connection. So roses and holy basil, with holy basil opening to spirit and roses opening the heart. It's a beautiful gift of a tea. So I want to talk to you a little bit about harvesting wild roses. Some people just harvest the petals, which are this beautiful heart shape. They have a lovely heart shape to them. Some people will just pull the petals off and they'll leave this bit behind, and that's going to turn into the hip. So you can harvest the petals and you can leave that. That part has lots of resins and oils in it too, though. So I tend to harvest the whole rose flower, and I dry them, or I'll put them straight into a honey and make a rose honey with them. When you're harvesting, you want to make sure that you leave lots of roses so that there's lots for the bees, and also you want to leave some so that there are rose hips in the fall, because once you've harvested the whole flower, that's it. The hips are not going to be there. I want to talk a little bit about rose hips. So this part of the rose will, once the petals have fallen, and these beautiful yellow stamens, this is perfect for harvesting because the stamens are beautiful and yellow. Once they've gone brown and the petals have fallen, that's the end of the rose petal harvest. But the next thing that happens is the rose hip harvest. And this part, this ovary, this is the hip, and it swells and grows over the course of the summer, and the seeds develop inside it. And as the fall comes, it turns this beautiful red, rose hip red. So the rose hips are a rich source of vitamin C, and they can be harvested just after the first frost. You don't want to harvest them too early. If you harvest them just after the first frost, what happens is that they sweeten a little bit, and the meat on the outside of them, the flesh on the outside of them, is juicy and sweet. You can dry those rose hips and they make an excellent winter tonic, so that you can add them to teas, you can make syrups with them, some people make jellies with them, but they were collected extensively through Europe in times of deprivation as a source of vitamin C, a really important source of vitamin C. So in summary, rose is to bring joy. Rose lifts the heart, brings joy into the heart. It's sweet, it's aromatic, it's opening, it protects the heart. It's particularly good for grief and heartbreak. Long associated with love, and it's harvested when it's in its prime flowering, when those stamens are nice and yellow and the petals are fresh. Later in the season, you have the rose hips, which are beautiful and red, and they're a great winter tonic, full of vitamin C, help protect against colds and flus.